When you think of the Fallout series, what comes to mind? Maybe you think of the classic Vault Boy, shooting nukes, or maybe just sexy robot characters. But I think we can all agree that the Pip-Boy is a pretty iconic part of the series, and is, in my opinion, one of the best examples of diegetic UI in gaming. Diegetic UI is basically when the user interface in a game actually exists within the game's universe, like the heads-up display in Halo, or looking through your inventory or other menus in Dead Space. The Pip-Boy is a fantastic example of this, as it essentially functions as a menu for the player where they can check their map, inventory, or in some cases, even enter dialogue with NPCs. For this video, I want to explore the user interface seen in each Fallout game, its design, functionality, and how it works as a diegetic UI.
It was a matter of time before someone got to Mr. House.
We're going to be focusing more on the mainline games in the series, so my apologies to those Fallout Shelter mega fans out there. So sit back, grab a Nuka-Cola or a Sunset Sarsaparilla, some of that dubious meat from Freeside, and let's explore the user interface of the Fallout series. Before Bethesda bought the rights in 2007, Fallout was originally created by Interplay Studios, where they developed Fallout 1, and then Black Isle Studios, a subsidiary of Interplay, developed Fallout 2. History lesson aside, the gameplay is quite different from the Fallout we know today. These OG games were isometric CRPGs with turn-based combat, which would drastically change with the Bethesda Fallout games, but more on that later. The Pip-Boy used in the first two games is the Pip-Boy 2000. It's used for almost all of the functions and menus throughout the game. The main screen, with different functions like resting and looking at archived video messages, character creation, inventory, maps, trading, and even dialogue. As soon as you start your journey, you're always using the Pip-Boy, and even if it's closed out, you'll always see an interface bar at the bottom of your screen, which is how you can open the Pip-Boy up to begin with. Well, technically you don't start with the Pip-Boy in Fallout 2, you have to complete the Temple of Trials first, but you still have the interface bar at the bottom of your screen. The interface bar shows text to the far left, describing actions happening in the game, like missing an attack and getting jumped by a group of giant ants. This bar also shows what weapon you currently have equipped, your HP, AC, and your skill dex, which is a screen showing your character's level within different skills. I was definitely thrown for a loop when I realized that there is no quest log like the later games, so if you're a bit of a noob like I am, this UI will take some getting used to. We also see some cool artwork in these games on the start screen, main menu, and loading screens, including this one that looks like a comic book and even features the lobotomites that would later appear in the New Vegas DLC, Old World Blues. And of course, there's also the Vault Boy drawings for each skill and perk, which would become a mainstay throughout the series. All of the different menus, despite having different functions, still use the same theme, colors, and font as one another. It's some of the best UI I've seen in gaming period, and Fallout Tactics definitely has a similar vibe. I really like it. Fallout 3 is, of course, when Bethesda bought the series and kind of revamped it a little. A so-called Oblivion with guns, Fallout 3 is an open-world RPG first-person shooter. Fallout New Vegas was next in the series, a spin-off developed by Obsidian that was made in the same engine as 3. This is very different from the past two games, and people have pretty differing opinions on whether or not this is a good direction for the series, but you have to admit one thing. The introduction of VATS was such a great way of translating the combat from the first two games into 3D. So anyways, back to the topic at hand. The player characters of Fallout 3 and New Vegas are both given the Pip-Boy 3000. Instead of the Pip-Boy being in basically all of the menus and always on your screen, you now just press a button to have your character hold the Pip-Boy up to the screen where you can navigate it from there. There are three buttons at the bottom: Stats, Items, and Data. In the stats section, you can check your character's status, special stats, skills, perks, and general information, which in 3 is how you can check your karma, and in New Vegas, how you can check your reputation with different settlements and factions. In the items section, you can look through your inventory, and in data, you can look at your maps, quest log, notes, and listen to the radio stations nearby.
I'm over here stroking my...
Since there's no longer that bar at the bottom of your screen, there's now a heads-up display with your HP and a compass to the left and your AP and weapon condition to the right. When things happen to your character, like discovering new areas, breaking limbs, or taking a sip of that trusty Vault 13 canteen, text will display on screen. In Fallout 3, the default color on the Pip-Boy screen and HUD is green, and in New Vegas, it's amber. You can change this though. You can have an amber, green, blue, or white display. I personally just use the default colors each game comes in since I think they're very fitting. Fallout 3 is very green and New Vegas is very yellow and amber, but I guess you could switch them around if you're a psycho. Hacking terminals is another new feature that was introduced in 3, and it's something I personally avoid doing, but kudos to you if you're an epic hacker. The loading screens in Fallout 3 usually show newspapers and advertisements from before the Great War. We see this in New Vegas as well, with some other pictures showing iconic locations throughout the game. And if the loading screen is taking a little too long to load, then it probably means your game is about to crash. I'm a sucker for really cool art in video games, and both Fallout 3 and New Vegas both have in-game posters that go way too hard. New Vegas introduced the companion wheel, which appears on screen whenever you interact with your companions. The wheel gives different options for commanding them, like trading items, talking, or just telling them to back up.
Will it revert, Tim?
And of course, I have to mention the Pimp-Boy 3 billion seen in New Vegas, which is pretty much the same as the Pip-Boy 3000, but as the name implies, is totally pimped out with a new golden color and some bling. If you have the Wild Wasteland trait, this funky tune plays when you use it for the first time. Unfortunately, if you're playing as a female character, it'll be crooked when you use it due to a glitch that was never fixed, but per usual, if you're a PC gamer, there's mods that'll fix it. Or I guess you could simply not be a woman. When compared to the UI seen in the first 2 games, there's more separation between the game and using the Pip-Boy, which isn't necessarily good or bad, just an interesting observation.
Worry, 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 love is passing me by.
In Fallout 4, after that whole beginning sequence, your character gets the Pip-Boy 3000 Mark IV. It's pretty similar to the Pip-Boy 3000 from 3 in New Vegas, with a more polished look and some new features. This Pip-Boy has 3 new sections: inventory, map, and radio. There's also a new adapter plug on this Pip-Boy which can plug into power armor, vaults, and robots. You can also play holotapes in it with video messages and minigames. The heads-up display has your HP to the bottom left, ammo count to the right, and a compass right in the center. A new feature in Fallout 4 that does relate to the UI is the settlement building.
All of this just works.
I know people are pretty divided about this, but I personally think it's a neat addition to the series. I mean, yeah, I would have much rather had more in-depth role-playing elements, but beggars can't be choosers. There's also power armor and chemistry stations, weapon crafting, and cooking, all of which still have consistent theming to the Pip-Boy. Like I mentioned earlier, this Pip-Boy definitely looks newer and more refined than the previous model. The screen display and heads-up display are green, similar to Fallout 3, with some animated Vault Boys seen on the stats menu and quest log. Some quests just have the Vault Boy doing his iconic thumbs up, but a lot of them actually have their own unique animations. When you're in a suit of power armor, your Pip-Boy and heads-up display is now an amber color rather than green. The loading screens pull a Skyrim and have a rotating 3D object with a tip or piece of lore at the bottom. The animation that plays when picking up notes is very Skyrim-like as well. It wouldn't be a Fallout game without some really cool artwork, and Fallout 4 delivers with awesome posters, comics, and billboards throughout the Commonwealth. In Fallout 76, you use the Pip-Boy 2000 Mark VI. It's pretty similar to the 3000 Mark IV, but the biggest difference is that the map section is not there, due to it having its own separate screen, which is the first time in the series that the map is not accessible through the Pip-Boy. Opening your map is also how you get to the settings, which is kind of strange in my opinion. The look of the Pip-Boy is a bit different too, of course. The stat, item, and data buttons have returned from 3 in New Vegas. The Pip-Boy itself looks heftier. And there's now the date at the bottom, which reminds me a lot of Fallout 1 and 2. Like the screen display of the Pip-Boy, the heads-up display hasn't changed too much from Fallout 4.
What the?
The weapon workbench, chemistry, cooking, and power armor stations have all returned from 4, and ammo crafting, found in the Tinker's workbench, made a comeback from New Vegas. You can now brew alcohol if you want to get crunk, and like the settlement building, you can set up your own camp using the aptly named Camps Construction and Assembly mobile platform. There's lots of other menus that appear in this game as well, like the vending machines, stash boxes, an emote wheel, and the atomic shop. Who knew a small DLC for Oblivion with horse armor would start all of this? Something neat is that the dialogue windows share a resemblance to the ones seen in 3 in New Vegas, which I think is much better than that dialogue wheel in 4. I also noticed that the classic Bethesda zoom-in thing happens when speaking with NPCs, which once again is similar to 3 in New Vegas. And Oblivion 2, but that's the wrong series. Now onto the design. Despite the Pip-Boy screen display being green, the heads-up display and a lot of the menus are yellow. You can also change the view of this, having a screen appear to the left side with a pale yellow color instead of green. The UI in this game, especially some of the menus and the map, are very colorful. There's even lots of colorful animated Vault Boys that appear on screen when you complete quests. It's pretty fun and kind of an interesting mix-up for the series. And once again, really cool artwork can be found all throughout the game. After exploring the user interface throughout the series, I can safely say that these are some of the best I've ever seen. Some people might find diegetic UI to be corny or unnatural, and yeah, it definitely can be, but the Pip-Boy blends seamlessly with the UI of the games, and I think it's kind of genius. The UI seen in all of the games is done extremely well, but if I'm being honest, I think the UI of the first 2 games are my personal favorite. They're a little more difficult to navigate, but damn, they just look so cool. I love how the Pip-Boy encompasses almost all aspects of the game, and how consistent the theming is. It just goes so hard. The rusted, worn-out look fits the tone of the games really well. But of course, I still really like the UI of the other games too. As I mentioned earlier, the Pip-Boy is probably the best example of diegetic UI done right. Not only is it cool looking, but it's also really convenient. If you need to check your map, look through your inventory, or tune into some Mr. New Vegas, all you gotta do is pull up your Pip-Boy and voila! I got the idea to make this video after doing my Elder Scrolls UI video, since Fallout is another video game series that I love and has some amazing user interface designs that needs a little more love in my opinion. So, yeah, the Pip-Boy is cool, Fallout is cool, go play the games if you haven't already.